Right now, it's bringing Fred Greetham. Love having Fred on to talk about the Browns, talk a little draft, little Myles Garrett, Shedeur Sanders picking a new number, and Todd Monken nowhere to be found in the Browns coaches photo. Let's bring in Fred Greetham to the Sam Bourquin Show. Fred, good afternoon. How are you on this Monday?
Doing great, Sam. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thanks for popping on here for a couple of minutes today. We certainly do appreciate it. Gosh, never a shortage of things to talk about. Even though that Andrew spoke, I think yesterday, the day before, and talked about a bunch of things with the media, especially about the Myles Garrett situation. He says, "Look, I'm done talking about it. I don't want to hear about it. It's over." I guess do we 100% believe Andrew Berry is Myles going to be a Brown for life?
I wouldn't guarantee that.
Neither.
I have a show on Wednesday night, put a shameless plug in called Inside the Browns Beat on YouTube, 7 to 8 Eastern. And we had salary cap expert, actually with the OBR, he's from London, England, Jack Duffin. And he came on our show immediately after those news broke, said there's not a reason for the Browns to have done that. It didn't give them any relief. It didn't change anything other than to make it palatable if they were to trade him, because his bonus was due the day after they made that move. And once they paid that bonus, it would have been, with that new contract he signed last year, no way under, be like Deshaun Watson,
Right.
trying to make a trade on dead cap. And so now it moves it to like Labor Day. And so it's after June 1st, instead of it being like 41 million, after June 1st, they can divide it up if they were to make a trade. Listen, I don't think that they ask that they're planning on trading him, and I believe Andrew Berry's truthful there, but I do believe that they did this for flexibility, that if the Dallas Cowboys or name your team comes calling and says, we'll give you some big time deal, then they could think about it again. But they still have to wait till after June 1st, which would, cost you the 2026 draft that's coming up, unless you were just getting players. So I do think that, they're truthful. They don't have any intent, but it does open up the door. And I think it could be, and this is just speculation, it could be Myles Garrett. We all remember at Super Bowl. I wrote about this today on the OBR.com. I laid it all out. But last year, when he embarrassed the organization and demanded a trade, saying they're not going to be good, I want to go to a Super Bowl team, and really kind of embarrassed the Browns, and they didn't trade him. What'd they do? They signed him to the biggest contract for a non-quarterback, $40 million a year, with a lot of it guaranteed for 4 years, $160 million. That would have been, you think that's when you move on, but you signed him to the contract. So now you have that, hanging over you. What could change? I'm sure Myles still wants to go to a Super Bowl. He got paid, check the box off. But that doesn't change now that you get all that money in your bank account that you still don't want to go to a Super Bowl. So now the next step is, how do I get to a Super Bowl team? So I can see his agent even saying, hey, you can't trade him. Let's change the language in case, it works out down the road. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Yeah. Maybe the Browns were trying to appease him because, as I understand, there's no advantage, especially this year at all. And even until like the end of his contract, 28, 29 or 30, that it would even make sense for him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Fred. I think there's a little bit of an opening there where some stuff could go down. And of course, a lot of reports that the Browns did withdraw their rules change proposal that would have allowed teams to trade draft picks up to 5 years in advance, other than the three where it's at now. So they pulled that off the table. Um, just sitting here, Fred, I'm thinking. Um, Gosh darn it! If the Cleveland Browns could get an unbelievable package in return for Myles Garrett, I know this probably rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it yesterday because I think that's the best way for all of us to move forward. And hey, especially if it's Dallas, Myles gets to go back home, get his money, maybe play for another crazy owner, but he's going to be close to home. I would still do it, Fred. I really would. What would you think about doing it still at this point, or no?
Well, obviously, it all depends on what the package is. Um, I I wouldn't do it as it stands because I went and did some research. Everybody gets infatuated with number one draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to get? He has a no trade clause. So is he going to want to go to the Carolina Panthers? Is he going to want to he's want to go to a Super Bowl contender. So, okay, let's just say the Final Four, the AFC Championship contenders and the NFC Championship contenders. Say the Final Four. That's picks 29 to 32. I went back the last 3 years and listed in my story who the picks were from 29 to 32. And I bet you there's some good players in there, but I don't think if you could pick, even with hindsight, the three best players from there, that it would be worth it. I mean, how are you going to justify just getting a lottery ticket and hoping? I went back even as far, I didn't put it in the story, I looked later. There's only 3 Pro Bowl players that were picked like since 2017 from 29 to 32. One was TJ Watt. He was the 30th pick. And David Njoku was like the 29th pick. And I think Patrick Queen. But I think you're just buying a lottery ticket. You're not getting the first pick in the draft. And so that's why I wouldn't. Here was my caveat in my story. If you're going to trade Myles Garrett, you need to come out of it with a franchise quarterback. And I doubt if any team, and I listed I went through the 32 projected quarterbacks, and I didn't come until the 20s when I thought a team could consider trading their quarterback for Myles Garrett straight up. And those are guys mostly unproven. I had guys like Cam Ward, Malik Willis, even Mendoza. Would the Raiders trade Mendoza straight up for Myles Garrett? I doubt it, even though he hasn't played it down. So that's how valuable the quarterback position is, even though Myles is the best defensive player in the NFL and probably one of the top 5 in the whole NFL, I would think. And yet, unless you're getting a quarterback out of your best asset, I don't know how that improves you, because even if you get the quarterback now, well, then your defense is taking a step back, because nobody takes into consideration that the defense is pretty good because 2 to 3 guys on the opponent are accounting for Myles Garrett every play. So that's just my thought right now. It could change after this year. You go 3-14 again, you're trying to get in position to get a quarterback. Okay, if he can help you be a chip to get there, so be it.
Yep, I agree with that too. Fred Greetham is our guest. Check him out on your social media platforms at Fred Greetham9. Fred does a great job covering the Browns with the Orange and Brown Report. Speaking of the draft, I think we're about 3 weeks away, something like that. Your thoughts right now as we sit here today, Fred, with the first pick? Do they hold it? Do they go back? Do they package it? Move down? Do they try to move up? What do you think they're going to do as we sit here today?
If I was sitting here today, based on what they've done and what they did last year, they were able to move down 2 or 3 spots and get a haul. I think that would be their preference. But I think that sitting at 2, is a big difference, even though it's only 4 spots to go to 6. But you have to get a trade partner. And I wouldn't want to go past, out of the top 10. So I don't know what that does. A lot of people point to the Dallas thing at, I think, 12. But I want to get a blue chip player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I still lean heavy to get a wide receiver, a playmaking wide receiver. And I'm not sure, just when I look at it, I feel like there's a tier of the top 3 wide receivers. And then down, you look at 24. I do think they would try to trade down. But if they don't and they stayed where they're at today, I think they would take a wide receiver with the first pick. And then at 24, they would have a better chance to get a starting offensive tackle. And I still think left tackle and wide receiver are their top 2 priorities. It could flip-flop if they feel, the tackle is there at 6, that they couldn't get a player close to that at 24, then I could see them flipping the other way. But I just personally feel like the 3 top wide receivers would be gone if they wait to 24. Even if the top 3 tackles are gone, there's more guys there with upside that could be starters, in the second time around. I wouldn't even be opposed to 2 wide receivers in the first round, just because I just can't believe they haven't addressed that position as of yet 2 years in a row.
Yeah, they just continue not to put a whole lot into that. Fred Greetham is our guest. Check him out at Fred Greetham 9. One more, we'll let you fly. Appreciate you coming on today. A quirk in the schedule, timing. Why was Todd Monken not in the Browns coaches photo today up in Cleveland?
I have no idea. I saw one little clip saying that I think Sean McVay wasn't in it as well, that they had a time mix-up, something. That it was scheduled another time or something like that. So I'm sure it's something like that. I don't think they get there and they say, oh, let's go ahead and do it. I don't know. They'll probably do another one, I would guess.
Yeah. We see Shador's going to go with number 2 now is his number for the Cleveland Browns. And I guess I'm starting to almost get the feeling that speaking of Coach Monken, they're kind of going to go all in here. Maybe I think with Shador, at least for this year and maybe next. Do you get that feeling? Or are they still keeping all their options open, considering who else is still in the room?
Well, first of all, with the number change, that's a whole new set of sales, isn't it? You change numbers and all those 12 jerseys go out to pasture and everybody has to buy a new one, unless you can, black out the one. But as far as that's the way I'm seeing the quarterback situation. They haven't given any indication that they were trying to, on free agency, to get Malik Willis or guys that became available like Kyler Murray or Tua. Say what you will, whether you like them or not, those guys. I haven't heard anything about that. And back when Deshaun Watson, they acquired him, you remember it leaked out when they still had Baker Mayfield and he threw a fit because word leaked out. I'm pretty sure word would have leaked out somewhere that the Browns were at least inquiring. I'm not saying they didn't, but I haven't heard anything about them showing interest in any veterans or anything. So now at the end of free agency, you're sitting here. The only thing we don't know is about the draft. It's hard for me to believe that they would look at Ty Simpson, with the 6th overall pick, assuming Mendoza goes 1. But that would be a game changer. That would tell you, yes, he's going to be your starter. Other than the 6th pick, I don't see a quarterback being drafted, coming in to start. They might take a Nussmeier. They might take Aller. They might take a Beck or somebody like that down the road. Maybe even Simpson if he's there at 24 or 39. But I cannot see that as being your surefire starting quarterback. So that leads me with Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. Haven't heard much about Dylan Gabriel. So I believe that that's what they're going to do. But I will just tell you this. I know the Haslams are speaking, and I haven't heard any of their comments really. But if you open it up to true competition, just sitting here right now without seeing anybody on the field, I would think Deshaun Watson would have a very good chance to be the starting quarterback. And nobody really wants to hear that, because what does that do for you when he's in the last year of his contract? I doubt if he would re-sign with the Browns, even if he had a great year. Maybe he would, but I don't think most Browns fans are ready to turn the page. Plus, you would basically have burned Shedeur Sanders, because I just don't. If he's the backup quarterback all year, I don't think you're planning him to be the franchise. And so that means sink or swim with Watson. And then you're starting all over in the 27 off season to see what you have and going all in to try to get a quarterback. So, yeah, as it sits right now, I think that's what they're talking about. But I would think if you're going to go with Sanders, you almost need to make that announcement at the end of OTAs and said, we're going all in with Shedeur Sanders, because if you get on the field and Watson looks better, then they're going to need to play him. And we all know what he's looked like in the regular season. I thought he looked really good at Greenbrier in the 2 years I watched him in training camp, and he played terrible in the regular season. So what are you going to do if you open it up to competition and he beats Sanders out?
I don't even want to think about it. Fred Greetham, our guest. Fred, we always appreciate you taking time to come on today, folks. You can check Fred out at Fred Greetham 9 on social media. Check him out on the Orange and Brown Report. He's got the great stuff going on YouTube, so make sure you give him a follow, a watch, and a listen. Fred, thanks for the time today, as always, and we'll talk to you down the road. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, Sam. Good talking to you. See you later.
Bet. There he goes. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report.